Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah. 'Tis the season to think about compost, right? From the pumpkin patch to the tree lot, it just so happens that many of the items we use to decorate actually serve as great materials for the compost pile. Who would have thought? A water expert, Denise Hickey, and horticulturalist, Patrick Dickinson, excuse me, is here to talk about exactly what that means, how you can compost. And Denise, tell us why composting is so important.
Well, the majority of our household trash is made up of our food waste. And many of these items that you see here, when you've used them, can be turned into compost.
Sure.
And compost is the greatest soil amendment that we have. And the plants just love it. It's natural.
A lot of people don't know a lot about composting, and especially a lot about how they can do that with some of these decorations. Can you talk a little bit about that, Patrick?
Yeah, and just like you heard Denise said, especially around the holidays, a lot of our decorations end up in the landfill. So things as you're decorating your pumpkins for Halloween, your mums for Thanksgiving, poinsettias for Christmas, all of that stuff can be composted. So those are great things to add. And of course, as you're in the kitchen working, all the food scrap, you know, making all your stuffing and things of that nature, those can all be composted like you see in this little bin, and this over here is a compost tumbler that actually turns everything to soil. And then for the moisture, you know, leftover food and wine can be poured on there for moisture. In my house, we're still looking for that leftover wine, but you can add things like
Maybe
that.
a couple drops.
Yeah, a good rule of thumb is whatever comes out of the ground can go back into the ground.
That makes sense. And a lot of people, you know, don't know exactly how to compost. Can you tell us a little bit about how that bin works? Should people invest in something like that if they want to start a compost pile?
Well, and that's the great thing is these are store-bought composters. This is called a tumbler. And so it actually spins and tumbles because there's 4 main ingredients to composting: the greens, the browns, water, and oxygen. And so those are things that all of this stuff can be turned into soil, basically. An amendment for your soil, all those rich micronutrients that you don't get typically from a lot of our fertilizers. So it's the best amendment for the soil, like you heard Denise say.
So make your own fertilizer, help your plants, and you're helping the environment in the process.
Oh, absolutely. But there's also a lot of things you don't want to add to the compost bin.
Because it can get really hot and bad things can happen in that compost pile.
You want it to get hot. Yes, you want it to get hot. And so there's things like you don't want to add like your meats. We don't want your fish and all that stuff in the compost bin. And then of course a lot of the processed sugars. So your candies, your desserts, that'll invite rodents that you don't want. You know, those guests that you don't want.
And same with meat, just too much bacteria.
Yeah, and then paper is great for the compost bin, but not all paper. Gift wrap can have foil in it, so you have to be careful what you're buying. If you want to buy something recyclable or compostable, you can do that. And then even things like your toilet paper rings and your paper towel rings, that's all paper. That can all be composted.
Oh, interesting. And even Christmas trees, right? I mean, a lot of us just put them out on the curb, but you can compost those too.
You can, and many of our cities actually offer services where they'll come and pick up your Christmas trees and take them to a facility where they're made into compost. And usually a monthly pickup is available, so check with your local city to see when you can put out your tree trimmings from your landscape cleanup, and then those can be turned into compost, and you can buy it local here in the Dallas area.
Oh, interesting. So where can people find more information about composting?
Well, on composting, you can go to our wateruniversity.tamu.edu. And we've got great information like the publication that talks about composting, as well as free classes. You can't beat free.
Great.
Where we talk about all these great things, what to compost, what not to compost. People are always amazed about what they can put in their compost. And there's other great information in there about different things to do this time of year going into winter, like irrigation, like Denise with
this time of year is when our grasses go dormant. And so we recommend that you turn your irrigation system off. And you do that when you set out your pumpkins at Halloween, and don't turn it back on until St. Patrick's Day.
That's a good rule of thumb, just to judge by the holidays.
But you have to still watch the weather, because we have a dry winter. You're still going to need to add a little bit of water to your landscape.
All right, Denise and Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. And very helpful, especially because so many of us are putting those pumpkins out right now.
That's right.
Thank you. And besides the food and the rides, there are definitely some unique things you want to see at the State Fair of Texas, which you might want to check out after the break.